Good afternoon, Professor Dursbury. I'm Carlos Guevara, and today I'm going to be discussing my capstone project, Socioeconomics and Literacy Rates within schools. I would first like to start off by thanking you and Professor Ginsberg for giving me the opportunity to be able to complete this project and my classes over the summer due to unforeseen events that occurred in my family. So I'd like to thank you and Professor Ginsberg for that opportunity. So let's go ahead and start my presentation. So here's my table of contents. I'm going to give you an abstract on the whole presentation, on the presentation as a whole. I also have my introductions, my methods, my results, as well as a discussion and applications of what my research has shown me. So here's the abstract. So the purpose of the study is to determine whether or not the socioeconomic stature of a student has any direct correlation to the level of which students can read and write. This study investigates two different levels of high school students. So I teach 9th and 12th graders in a social science classroom. I had global studies for my 9th graders and economics for my 12th graders. This study uses different methods on collecting data that include DBQs, those are document-based questions, student surveys, and assessments. Based on the evidence gathered from this research, that there is a direct link between the socioeconomic standings of students and how well they can read and write. The research shows that students who have more economic means than those who do not have better opportunities in the past or are more aware of how important literacy can be. So here is the problem that I have determined and wanted to look into. Does the socioeconomic status of a student affect their literacy levels? Here's some literature that I found in regards to previous findings. First is the achievement gap. Socioeconomic status affects reading developments beyond language and cognitive in children facing poverty. So this study actually was using data from Romania, actually, in Europe. And they found that students who had higher socioeconomic standings were more likely to have a higher reading comprehension skills at an earlier age. They also took into consideration many factors such as bilingualism and how absent students actually were from their schools. This information would have been helpful for my case if I was at a different location, such as Mount Miguel or El Cajon Valley, but here in Santana and here in Santee, there isn't that much of a wide range of English learning students. They also found that in their research that the best solution to this problem was to establish a better connection with the family within each student. They found that using Vygotsky's research as well, that by having the family involved in a student's learning environment actually helps the student become better readers and writers as well. Next is also an article titled "Poor Kids Learn Like Rich Kids and All Kids in Between." This article discusses how both rich students and poor kids actually have the same brain capabilities when they enter school at a younger age. The only difference is that their upbringing is what determines their abilities to read and write. It talks about how rich kids or the rich households are often placed in preschool before they go into kindergarten and elementary school. And at an earlier age, the parents are more involved in teaching and having students read and write with them together as a whole. It also found that schools that have or that are part of poor communities are actually implementing a different style of teaching known as drill and grill, where teachers spend majority of their time in the classroom, almost the entire 6 hours worth, in teaching kids how to read and write and using vocabulary terms and such, instead of spending more time on mathematics, science, recess, physical activities, and things like that nature. They soon found that the best method is to get parents involved at an earlier age, and they gave examples of some of the resources that are available for these parents and their students from these poor communities. So here's my hypothesis. A student's socioeconomic status will be a key factor in a student's ability to read and write, as well as being able to comprehend what they are reading in their classes. So here is my participants overall. I had 61 students overall in my 9th and 12th grade class. My freshman class, my students were aged between 14 and 15 years old, and my senior class were between 17 and 18 year olds. I had 35 ninth graders and 26 12th graders, 35 male and 26 female. Of these students, 47 of them were white, 7 Hispanics, 4 Arabic, and 3 African American. Overall, I had 5 English learners. Like I stated before, there aren't that many English learning students here at Santana High School. 3 of them are in the 9th grade, and then 2 of them were in 12th grade. The instruments that I was using for this research were student parent consent forms, primarily because some of the questions I had asked the students regarded to what type of capabilities their parents and their families had. Student questionnaire surveys, so these consisted of simple Google forms that they used in class. Primarily, I gave them extra credit for that. Document-based question assessments, so this one was based primarily as a final assessment for the students in my class, and then also reading assessments throughout the semester as well. Experimental design is a quasi-experimental single group and one-shot study case. Procedures, so students, we ask students questions to determine what their socioeconomic currently status is by reviewing how much disposable a student's family possesses compared to other students in class. So basically, I'm trying to see how much disposable income a student's family had and relations to other students in the class. Students would take a series of assessments. Originally, it was 3 throughout the quarter. So our school did a quarter system as opposed to a semester. So it went from April to June. And this I used to help myself determine the level of literacy in the subjects of social science. The main assessments was a DBQ for the freshmen and a final project for my seniors. So here are some of the results from my questionnaires in regards to determining their socioeconomic status. On the far left side here, I have what type of houses students have. Either they have a single-story house, two-story house, apartment, or other. I chose this question because I wanted to see if maybe the parents, the family, were either renters, meaning that they didn't have that much disposable income, or if they lived in a two-story home, in which usually depicts that they lived in a more expensive household, meaning that they have more disposable income, as opposed to a one-story house, which means they probably rent, or they didn't have as much income. The next survey, I asked them what type of family activities they possess, or do they do as a whole. Meaning, do they go on trips as families? Do they go to the desert, which is something that a lot of kids out here in Santee do? Do they visit other countries? Do they go to the river? Or is it something that a lot of kids as well here do in their spare time? And as you can see here, a lot of our students here in Santana, especially my students, they go to the desert, they go to the river. They also visit other countries as well. About 20%, give or take, as a whole, between my seniors and freshmen, do none. So this could also indicate that maybe their families do not have that much disposable income to spend on those type of activities. And then finally, the biggest factor, I believe, is if a student possesses free or reduced lunch. Top one has freshmen, the bottom one below has the seniors. You can see here that more than half of my students in my freshman class do not receive free or reduced lunch, and about almost 3/4 of my seniors do not as well, indicating that their families do not qualify for that, meaning that they have more income than most students do. So with this information involved, I was able to determine which students were either low socioeconomic status or not. And here are the results of my DBQ and final project. On the left side, I have my freshman DBQ scores. As you can see, majority, I had more failing students, 0 through 20, and 20 to 29. And I'll go into more explanation here momentarily into why that was. And a fairly large amount of A's and B's, 45 to 50. So I had more A's and B's compared to F's and D's. For the senior final project, I had more passing grades, more 90s to 100s, and a fair large amount of 0 to 50s as well. And I'll also explain that here momentarily as well. Now, combining the data using for the free and reduced lunch with the DBQ scores, you'll see here that on the left side were the freshmen. More than half of the students who got A's did not receive free or reduced lunch, meaning that they were part of a higher socioeconomic standards. And you see on the far right side, you'll see more as well. Majority of the students also were not part of that. But you'll see here in the 20 to 29 area, majority of the students, almost 5 out of 6, actually received free or reduced lunch, meaning that they were also lower socioeconomic standings. This can indicate the reason why is because a lot of my freshman students did not participate or take the DBQ as well. Here on the right side, you have the final for the senior class as well. So the results. So based on the questionnaire provided to students to both classes, majority of the class does not receive free or reduced lunch, so as I explained before. Majority of the students who did not receive free or reduced lunch also appear to have more disposable income than other students based on their housing situation, the type of activities their household can afford. So based on the test results and where a student's socioeconomic status is, there appears to be some correlation between the two. So meaning that there is some relation between how much money a student's family earns determines how well they can read and write in a social science class. There appears to be a bigger discrepancy between the senior class and the freshman class, and this could be also due to the lack of classroom time the freshmen actually had compared to the seniors. The seniors obviously have had more time in the classroom in its high school level than the freshmen did due to the COVID. So since the COVID shutdown, a lot of students have not had the opportunity to read and write in class and also have more practice as well. And then going back also to the results of a lot of zeros through 20s or low Fs is because a lot of students didn't turn in their assignments either. This is also due to the fact that a lot of students were also distance learning, and I believe it was 9 out of 10 students did not turn in any assignments who were still distance learners. So that's one of the issues as well. And I'm going to discuss that here momentarily. So students who demonstrated that they were higher socioeconomic status appear to have a higher literacy capabilities and abilities to write and create arguments. When I was grading these papers, one of the things they had to argue for the DBQ was globalization, if it was good or bad. And they had to explain why it was or was not. And of course, those students who had a higher economic status were able to write better arguments. Also in my discovery was that students in higher socioeconomic status households were more likely also to come in class, and majority of them were in person as opposed to distance learners. So the findings were aligned with some of the literacy that the students with socioeconomic advantages have more successful rates. So here's some implications on this research. Many students who were distance learners for at least the past year did not have enough to build up their literacy skills. Freshmen especially have not had any real opportunity to practice their skills in person or with the teacher due to the fact they were not participating as a whole in class. And also there is no true way to measure a student's actual socioeconomic status solely based on free or reduced lunch and how much disposable income they have. I mean, for all I know, their parents spend majority of their income on those things and may not have enough time to do other things, or maybe they inherited, or maybe they go with other family members and friends to those vacation trips. And also maybe their parents just lie on the forms for free reduced lunch just so that they don't have to pay for it. Also, race was not taken into consideration since the school is predominantly white, and I wanted to keep the study solely based on the wealth of families of students. Also, early in the year, there wasn't really a literacy test that was being administered to the students due to COVID. So there was really no baseline for myself to really use to see how far students have gone from beginning of the year to end now. And also more data will be needed in the future to determine how we can identify students who are more likely to succeed because of their socioeconomic status. And then also one of the things I think that could be done better for this research is to compare school sites. Compare this school site to maybe a school site from across the way here in Santana or Santee, or maybe compare it to one that has a lower socioeconomic standing as well. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much, Professor.